and welcome to the Building Families and Communities Show. We're delighted tonight to have a special guest with us, Dr. Staphanie Sweet, who is a local gynecologist here in the Nashville area. And we're happy to introduce her to and present her to others. I understand she's been around Nashville for a while doing what she does well. And we're going to talk tonight as a topic. We're going to take the impact of self-image on women's health and well-being. And I believe that she is well qualified to talk about it.
Thank you.
So again, welcome, Dr. Sweet. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your background and what you do here in Nashville?
Okay, well, I am a gynecologist, as you said.
Mm-hmm.
I have been in Nashville since 2000, and for a majority of my career, I have worked in academics, mostly with Meharry.
Okay.
And getting close to 3.5 years, no, 3.5 years ago, I went out in private practice, and I've been focusing mostly on gynecology.
Okay, great, great. That's interesting. You know, I understand that it's not a whole lot of women that are in that specialty, but as you were saying earlier, it's getting better, I understand.
Absolutely.
Well, good. You know, you would think that something that is as personal to ladies and women as that is, that you would have more ladies in there. Is there a reason why?
Well, I think sometimes it's the lifestyle. When you're in medical school and then choose a residency program, things are pretty hectic, and time is at a premium for social life. So I think because OBGYN is a very involved specialty, that a lot of people might shy away just because of the time consumption.
I see. So it's a matter of how do we balance our personal life with the commitment of
absolutely, because you are committed.
Okay. Well, just some things that we wanted to talk about. I know you have an initiative relative to women's health. Could you talk to us a little bit about that?
Well, the reason I wanted to talk about self-image and how it impacts on women's health and well-being is because of what I've learned talking to the ladies that I've been blessed to care for.
Okay. Interesting.
A lot of times, it was funny, for a long time I used to just tell people, oh, well, I just take care of female parts. But honestly, the Lord has shown me, no, you take care of female parts and hearts and souls. And with that, recognizing the differences that women carry with them based on how they see themselves, and that can positively but sometimes negatively impact on their overall health.
Interesting. You know, you said something that's key, and that is we have to not objectify women's issues, but see them as from a holistic standpoint.
Absolutely.
In terms of things that drive their day-to-day activities, their emotions, and that sort of thing. So I guess it's so easy for the average person not to even consider those things.
Yes, and it's amazing. A lot of times we as women don't either.
Wow.
We, as you know, usually gather that family together, as we were talking about earlier off camera, and so many times women will put their health and well-being second or third or fourth even, so that someone else can be taken care of. And I have the misfortune of sometimes meeting women who have been putting things off for so long that now it's kind of difficult to get them back in shape.
Interesting. Yeah. You know, culturally, there appear to be this expectation that the woman is the center of the home and the family, and that justifies her not caring for herself as she should. So, is that something that you provide by way of counseling with your patients?
It's interesting you say that, because counseling has definitely become a very large part of my practice. And I get patients that come because they heard, oh, well, she'll talk to you, and she'll try to break it down, so to speak.
Keep it real.
Keep it real, whatever that means at the moment. But on an interesting note, I've been going on my own personal journey with faith and learning more. And reading Genesis a while ago, noting in Genesis chapter 1, I think it was verse 27, where the first image comes up of man.
Wow. You're going to preach my sermon now.
I'm sorry. But, you know, to say that we were created in his divine image,
Absolutely.
male and female. And so
Right.
from that moment, it's a discussion about your image being of God. And so I have taken that very seriously. So when I'm talking to people, I try to remind them that no matter what images that we place on them in society or sometimes even in the home, we have to remember who we were fashioned by and why we were fashioned that way. So I think it's verse 31 where at the end it says God looked at everything that he created and he said it was very good.
Yeah. That's
So I have to tell patients all the time and of
Sure.
course remind myself,
Right.
if God has made this, we can't decide that it's something wrong.
That's a pivotal point, and because too many people take the discussion and the consideration of God's purpose for you out of their day-to-day function.
Absolutely.
And I wonder if that adds to the stress.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
The lack of guidance.
Yes, and we live in an age, I'm a 60s baby.
Okay.
I came up when the televisions went off at midnight and we
I
saw
remember
the
that.
national
Hey,
anthem.
don't age us.
And saw the national anthem page.
Right,
and that
that's
was
right.
it.
They would, and you
Exactly.
gotta-
But now with information technology being available 24 hours a day in your phone even,
Wow.
you have to recognize that the imagery has changed. And, body image is a big thing that I
Sure,
talk with
sure.
women about of all ages.
Sure.
And when we look at ourselves, I want to remind people that advertisements are placed so that they can encourage you to buy something. And we don't consider it that way. It's,
Right.
oh, I don't look right if I don't drive this car, or if I don't have on this pair of pants, or I'm not this size. And so advertisements, now the entertainment industry with some reality shows are putting images out there that aren't always flattering.
Right.
But because we are in this constant in an era where people are constantly being told what they should and shouldn't think, instead of listening to what's being taught in the home or in the church, it's changing a lot of things
Wow,
about
now-
how women think of
Now,
themselves.
you struck a chord right there when you talked about home and church. But before I go there, will you give our listening audience a functional definition of self-image?
Well, I'm glad you said that, because sometimes it changes.
Okay.
I think a person's self-image fluctuates throughout the day because of the encounters that they have. If you wake up in your household in the morning and everybody is happy that you're up and you're healthy, and for instance, if you're a young person going to school and someone tells you to have a good day and make sure that you had something to eat, and when you get home,
Wow.
they say, hey, how was your day? They eat together and then put boundaries in place.
Interesting.
You're going to have a certain outlook on life. But if you're a child, for instance, who no one cares if you got up and go to school, or if they're telling you you need to stay home because you need to watch the kids today because they have something else they need to do.
Right.
There's so many different scenarios that are unfolding, which is why the family and the church, I think we've kind of lateralized them to Sundays mostly.
Right.
And we were a stronger community when we were more family and church centered,
Sure.
and the rest was secondary.
About 2 years ago, well, just recently, our organization completed some subcontractual work dealing with human trafficking.
Okay.
And our function was to identify the indicators and risk factors for young ladies in particular being exploited in prostitution and things of that nature. And through a health department study, Metro Health Department study, I think it was dated 98, and they did a joint study with the police department. Well, they found that there's a correlation between young ladies, their attitudes, their behaviors, desire to be recognized through gangs and the drug culture and things of that nature. And we identified some very alarming things relative to young ladies and how they make themselves bait for exploitation. Can you speak to that a little bit in the context of self-image?
It's interesting that you said they made themselves bait. And I find that a little disturbing because they're children.
Absolutely. Well, the grown adults did the same thing, though.
I understand, but if it starts when they're young adults or children, it's because there is a disconnect. There's someone that's not giving them information to make them value themselves more. And so if there's a disconnect, or unfortunately, sometimes parents and families barter their children. I have seen several circumstances where it's okay for you to date this older person because they're going to pay a bill in the household. So if you're trying to survive as a family, and you've decided that that's how to get something paid, whether you're living above your means or otherwise, it unfortunately can turn into a pretty frightening scenario. I know you're like, we weren't supposed to go this deep.
No. That's well. I take a deep breath because those are some of the things we unearth. Is the fact that often it's the family that becomes your enemy.
Right. Or if the child was trying to escape because someone was molesting her or making her feel very uncomfortable. So even though it's 2011, there are a lot of things that still need to be, well, I would like to rephrase that. There are a lot of people that need to be re-educated about the vulnerability that still exists with female children.
Sure. Is it possible that you can take a female teenager and she have a scarring event that goes with her throughout latency in life, and even though she's 40 years old, she's still living from the context of that teenage pain?
Which goes back to the original discussion. If a person has some type of self-image or some part of them that they see as damaged or wrong, or however they negatively describe it, it will impact them for the rest of their lives. Some women can never have healthy relationships with a man. Some women hide certain things about themselves because they think that they're responsible, when a lot of times they are not. And those are things and issues that I talk with women about regularly. For instance, if a person had a relationship that left her with sexual transmitted disease, it could tailor who she chooses to accept as a partner in the future. Because they don't want to discuss this with someone else. So they feel, well, I need to stay in this relationship and be hurt or disappointed or feel betrayed for a lifetime, because they're thinking, and this is a quote, who else would want me?
I wish I could tell you wasn't telling the truth. Unfortunately. It seems to me that there should be some sort of structured or codified lesson that mothers should teach their daughters as they're growing up in the various stages of development. Is that off? Am I crazy? Or
Well, you know, it's a cultural issue. Some people feel very comfortable, and that's the beautiful thing about 2011. I have a lot of moms that are like educating their daughters from right before puberty, so that they are not missing out on certain very important information, and their daughters are comfortable saying what they're feeling, what's going on. But we still have a lot of people who aren't comfortable with that because they think that's going to be a ticket to ride, so to speak, and so they are concerned that their children may start dabbling in things that they might not be ready for. And it's kind of all over the map. And sometimes if the mother isn't comfortable, then how can she really give, what word would I look for to describe it, because I don't want to be too negative, but if she can't give constructive and helpful information, but the only words that she gives are fearful and threats, then that makes the child less likely to want to speak to her mother. But sometimes it's even grown women. You know, we're talking about children a lot, but a lot of good and grown women too are having concerns, and we just break it on down. I love that my four walls are quiet.
I'm glad you said that, because, and I've experienced this even within my own personal context with family members. As I mentioned earlier, there are a lot of latent scars, emotional issues that I think unconsciously drive their chronological adulthood. And because